The warning siren started at dawn. Sarah Okonkwo was drinking coffee on her balcony when the first alarm cut through the peaceful morning air of New Harare, the capital city of Demeter. She nearly dropped her cup. In 20 years as governor of this colony world, those sirens had only been tested once a month. They had never sounded for real. She ran inside and activated her communication console. The screen lit up with red emergency indicators. Her military advisor, Colonel James Park, appeared on the screen. His face was pale. "Governor, we have multiple contacts entering the system. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our detection range." "How many?" Sarah asked. Her hands were already shaking. 60 ships. Maybe more. They're bigger than anything in our defense fleet. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Demeter had exactly 4 patrol ships. They were designed to handle pirates and smugglers, not a military fleet. "Have they responded to our hails?" "No, ma'am. We've broadcasted on all standard frequencies. They're not answering." Colonel Park paused, checking something off screen. "Governor, they're moving toward us fast." Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. Demeter was a farming colony, home to 2 million people. They grew food for 6 other human worlds. They had no military installations, no weapons factories, nothing worth attacking. "Keep trying to contact them," she ordered. "Get me a connection to Earth Command. We need help." "Already tried, Governor. Something is blocking our FTL communications. We can't send messages out of the system." That was when Sarah knew this was not a misunderstanding. This was an attack. She had studied history in school back on Earth. She remembered reading about ancient wars, about armies that would cut communication lines before an invasion. She had never thought she would experience it herself. Humanity had been so peaceful for so long. "How long until they reach us?" she asked quietly. "At their current speed? 14 hours. Sarah took a deep breath. "Sound the evacuation alert. Get everyone to the shelters. And Colonel, activate Ember Protocol." Colonel Park's eyes widened. "Governor, are you certain?" "That protocol—" "I know what it means," Sarah interrupted. "Do it now." Ember Protocol was something every colony governor knew about but hoped never to use. It stood for Emergency Military Basic Emergency Response. It had been created 200 years ago, during the early days of human space exploration, when colonies were vulnerable and help was far away. The protocol was simple. If a colony was attacked and could not get help in time, they would fight. They would hold the enemy as long as possible. They would make the attackers pay for every meter of ground. And most importantly, they would buy time for Earth to send help. Every human colony had hidden weapons stockpiles. Every colonist received basic combat training, disguised as emergency response education. Every building was designed with defensive positions in mind. It was all hidden in plain sight. The galaxy thought humans were peaceful farmers and merchants, and for 300 years humans had been peaceful. But they had not forgotten how to fight. Colonel Park saluted. "Understood, Governor. I'll begin deployment immediately." The next few hours were chaos. Sarah broadcast a message to the entire planet, trying to keep her voice calm. She told people to go to the shelters. She told them help was coming. She did not tell them that help might arrive too late. The alien ships, Sarah still did not know who they were, reached orbit around Demeter. They positioned themselves around the planet like a noose tightening around a neck. Then the bombardment began. The first strike hit the spaceport on the northern continent. The explosion was visible from space. Sarah watched on her monitors as the building where she had first landed on Demeter 20 years ago disappeared in a flash of light. More strikes followed. They were targeting infrastructure, power plants, communication hubs, government buildings. The aliens were systematic and efficient. They had done this before. Sarah's console finally picked up a transmission from the alien fleet. A face appeared on her screen. It was not human. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth that looked like it had too many teeth. "Primitive species," the alien said. Its voice was translated by the computer into flat, emotionless English. "You are now property of the Crethian Collective. Surrender immediately and you will be processed for labor assignments. Resist and you will be eliminated. You have 1 hour to respond." The transmission ended. Sarah stared at the blank screen. Her hands had stopped shaking. She felt a strange calm settle over her. She finally understood what was happening. These aliens, these Crethians, thought humanity was weak. They thought humans would surrender without a fight. They were wrong. She opened a channel to Colonel Park. How many people made it to the shelters? About 90%, ma'am. The rest are in transit or volunteering for defense positions. Good. Distribute the weapons from the Ember stockpiles. Organize everyone into defensive units. And, Colonel, send a message on the Quantum Channel. The Quantum Channel was different from normal FTL communication. It was slower, harder to detect, and almost impossible to jam. Every human colony had one, connected directly to Earth Command. The Krethians did not know about it. What should the message say? Colonel Park asked. Sarah thought for a moment. She thought about the 2 million people on her planet. She thought about the children in the shelters scared and crying. She thought about the farmers who had come here to build a peaceful life. Tell Earth what's happening. Tell them we're activating Ember Protocol. And tell them, she paused, tell them to remember Demeter. Colonel Park nodded slowly. They'll come, Governor. I know they will. I know, Sarah agreed. But we need to survive until they do. How long can we hold? Colonel Park did not answer immediately. He was running calculations in his head. If we use every advantage we have, if we fight smart and use the terrain, maybe 30 days, maybe less. Then we hold for 30 days, Sarah said firmly. Make them pay for every single day. The hour passed. Sarah did not respond to the Krethian ultimatum. Instead, she sent a transmission on every frequency, making sure the Krethians heard it. She wanted them to have a record of this moment. To the Krethian collective, she said, staring directly into the camera. You have attacked a peaceful colony without provocation. You have killed innocent people. You have made a terrible mistake. We will not surrender. We will fight you with everything we have, and when our people come, and they will come, you will regret ever hearing the name Demeter. She ended the transmission and turned to her staff. Get to your positions. Make me proud. The Krethian response was immediate. 80,000 troops began landing across the planet. They came in massive dropships, shaking the ground as they descended. They wore armor and carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. The humans met them with hunting rifles and homemade explosives. The first Krethian troops landed near New Harare. They expected to find frightened civilians hiding in their homes. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. Then the shooting started. Humans fired from windows, from rooftops, from underground tunnels. They used sniper rifles to target Krethian officers. They used drones rigged with explosives. They collapsed buildings on top of advancing troops. The Krethians were confused. They had conquered 500 worlds. They had defeated thousands of species. Those species had always surrendered quickly or died quickly. These humans were doing neither. By the end of the first day, 3,000 Krethians were dead or wounded. They had barely advanced into the city. Their commander, a veteran warrior named Thekmol, stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. How is this possible? He demanded of his officers. They are primitives. They have basic weapons. Why are they not broken? His officers had no answers. They had followed standard Krethian invasion doctrine. It should have worked. It always worked. But the humans were not following anyone's doctrine. They were fighting like cornered animals. No, worse than that. Animals knew when to give up. These humans did not seem to understand the concept of surrender. On the second day, the Krethians changed tactics. They brought in heavy weapons and began destroying entire blocks of the city. If humans wanted to hide in buildings, the Krethians would simply remove the buildings. The humans adapted. They retreated into the tunnel systems under the city. They launched hit-and-run attacks from the sewers. They set traps in the rubble. On the fifth day, a Krethian supply depot exploded. Investigation revealed that an elderly human woman had walked up to the guards, smiled at them, and detonated a bomb vest. The guards had assumed she was surrendering. On the 10th day, Krethian casualties passed 10,000. Thekmol requested reinforcements. Across the planet, the story was the same. Human colonists fought with whatever they had. Farmers used their tractors as improvised tanks. Factory workers turned their machinery into weapons. Teachers organized ambushes. Children ran messages and supplies through tunnels too small for adult soldiers. The Krethians could not understand it. Why would a species fight so hard when defeat was inevitable? Why would they not accept their fate? They did not understand that humans remembered their own history. Every human child learned about the Alamo, where defenders held against impossible odds. They learned about Thermopylae, where 300 warriors stopped an army. They learned about Stalingrad and Leningrad and every other time humans had refused to surrender. Those were not just stories to humans. They were lessons. They were instructions for what to do when someone came to take your home. By the 15th day, the Crethians controlled most of the planet's surface. But they were learning that controlling territory and defeating the enemy were two different things. The humans were still fighting. They had retreated into the mountains, into the forests, into underground bunkers, and they were still killing Crethians every single day. Thekmal intercepted a human radio transmission. It was a man's voice, weak and broken, probably dying. "Katie, if you're listening to this..." "I'm sorry I won't make it home. But I want you to know something. I want you to remember. They came to our world. They thought we would be easy. They were wrong. We stood, we fought. And when help comes, because it will come, they'll find that we didn't make it easy. Remember Demeter, sweetheart. Remember that your father stood." The transmission ended. Thekmal felt something he had never experienced in 40 years of conquest. It took him a moment to identify the feeling. It was doubt. On the 20th day, more Crethian reinforcements arrived. 40,000 fresh troops eager to finish this battle and claim their glory. They found exhausted human defenders, low on ammunition and supplies, still fighting. On the 28th day, Thekmal stood on a hill overlooking what remained of New Harare. 90% of the planet was under Crethian control, but that last 10% was costing him hundreds of lives every day. His communication officer approached. "Sir, we're detecting unusual readings at the edge of the system." "What kind of readings?" "Multiple FTL signatures." "Large ones, sir. I think it's the human fleet." Thekmal felt his blood turn cold. He had sent a message to the collective 3 days ago, requesting immediate extraction. He had tried to explain that something was wrong, that these humans were not normal prey. The collective had not responded. Now it was too late. "How many ships?" Thekmal asked quietly. The officer checked his instruments. "Sensors are counting 400 contacts. They're military vessels. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, and... Sir, that's a dreadnought-class ship. I didn't know humans had dreadnoughts." Thekmal looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the human fleet was arriving. Somewhere up there, his own fleet was about to engage them. He looked back at the city. At the rubble where 2 million humans had lived. At the fortifications where thousands still fought even after 30 days of hell. He finally understood the truth. The collective had made a mistake. They had attacked a species they did not understand. They had assumed humans were like all the others, soft, weak, ready to submit. But humans were not prey. They were predators who had learned to live in peace, and the Crethians had reminded them how to hunt. "All units," Thekmal ordered. "Prepare for defensive positions. The real battle is about to begin." In her command bunker deep underground, Governor Sarah Okonkwo received a message on her console. It was from Colonel Park. "Governor, the Terran Expeditionary Fleet has arrived. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen is in command. They're engaging the Crethian orbital forces now." Sarah closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face. They had done it. They had held for 30 days. 780,000 colonists had died. Cities had been destroyed. Farmland had been burned. But they had held. She opened her eyes and activated her microphone, broadcasting to every surviving human on the planet. "People of Demeter," she said. Her voice was hoarse from smoke and exhaustion. "Help has arrived. Our fleet is here. We held, we survived. And now they're going to learn what happens when you attack humanity." Above the planet, the battle had begun. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the TES Indomitable, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. The Dreadnought-class warship was the pride of the Terran Navy. 5 kilometers of weapons and armor that had never seen real combat. "Until today. Status report," he ordered crisply. His tactical officer, Commander Lisa Torres, checked her screens. 412 ships reporting ready, Admiral. All weapon systems are charged and locked. The Crethian orbital fleet is moving to intercept. I count 63 enemy vessels. They actually think they can win, Chen said quietly. There was no emotion in his voice. He had watched the recordings from Demeter. He had seen the destroyed cities. He had read the casualty reports. 780,000 dead. He had also watched the intercepted Crethian communications. He had heard them laughing about how easy the conquest would be. How pathetic the human resistance was. How profitable the slaves would be. The Crethians had made two mistakes. First, they had attacked humanity. Second, they had done it in a way that gave humans time to respond. Chen was about to make sure they never made a third mistake. Open a channel to the Crethian fleet. All frequencies. Channel open, sir. Chen leaned forward slightly. To the Crethian collective forces. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. You have 30 seconds to begin evacuation procedures and abandon Demeter orbit. Any ship that remains after that time will be considered hostile and destroyed. You have 30 seconds starting now. He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Kim, prepare firing solutions for every Crethian ship in orbit. Solutions plotted and locked. Sir? Good. Count down from 30. The bridge was silent except for the quiet beeping of consoles. Chen watched the tactical display. The Crethian ships were not moving. They were actually positioning themselves for battle. They really thought they could win. 20 seconds, Lieutenant Kim announced. Sir, Commander Torres said carefully. They're powering up weapons. They're not going to withdraw. I know, Chen replied. He had expected this. The Crethians were used to other species being afraid of them. They probably thought the human fleet would back down once they showed force. 10 seconds. Chen allowed himself a small, cold smile. The Crethians were about to learn something important about humans. When humans made a threat, they followed through. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up, Admiral. Fire everything, Chen ordered. Eliminate the Crethian fleet. The bridge of the Indomitable shook slightly as its massive railguns fired. The other 399 ships in the Terran fleet opened fire at the same moment. The space around Demeter lit up like a sun was being born. The Crethians had shields. Every spacefaring species had shields. They were designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma fire. They worked very well against the standard weapons used by most galactic civilizations. Humans did not use standard weapons. Human railguns fired solid metal projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Human missiles carried nuclear warheads and antimatter charges. Human ships launched clouds of small drones that swarmed enemy vessels like metal piranhas. The Crethian shields had no idea what to do with any of it. The first volley destroyed 18 Crethian ships outright. They simply disintegrated, torn apart by kinetic impacts that hit with the force of small asteroids. The Crethians returned fire. Their plasma lances and energy beams struck the human fleet. 3 human destroyers took hits. Their shields absorbed most of the damage, but one ship reported casualties. Chen watched the tactical display update. Casualties? Destroyer Roosevelt reports 4 dead, 12 wounded. Ship is still combat capable. Continue firing. Do not let up. The battle lasted 10 minutes. The Crethians fought hard. They were experienced warriors with advanced technology. They used their numerical advantage, which only lasted for the first minute, and attempted tactical maneuvers. None of it mattered. The human fleet moved like a living thing. Ships covered each other, synchronized their fire, and adapted to enemy tactics in real time. When Crethian vessels tried to outflank them, human picket ships appeared from nowhere to block them. When the Crethians concentrated their fire on single targets, the human ships simply absorbed the punishment and kept fighting. Chen had spent 2 years training this fleet. He had studied every battle humanity had ever fought, from ancient naval warfare to the last wars before Earth's unification. He had built a military force that combined 3,000 years of human military experience with modern technology. The Crethians had never faced anything like it. By the 6th minute, 40 Crethian ships had been destroyed. The rest were trying to retreat, their commanders finally realizing they could not win. Chen did not let them run. All ships, pursuit pattern Delta, cut off their escape vectors. I want every single ship that participated in the bombardment of Demeter. The human fleet surged forward. Fast attack ships and destroyers moved ahead, blocking the Crethians' escape routes. The heavier cruisers and battleships followed, pouring fire into the trapped enemy vessels. Sir, Commander Torres said, we're receiving surrender requests from 16 Crethian ships. Chen's jaw tightened. He thought about Governor Okonkwo's transmission, begging the Crethians for mercy. He thought about the elderly woman who had used herself as a bomb because she had nothing else left to fight with. Inform them that we will accept their surrender after their weapons are disabled and their crews are in escape pods. Any ship that still has active weapons will be destroyed. It was more mercy than the Krathians had shown Demeter. By minute 10, it was over. 63 Krathian ships had entered the battle. 63 ships were now either destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost one destroyer. It had taken a direct hit to its reactor and suffered damage to 14 other ships. Chen allowed himself to relax slightly. The first part was done. Now came the hard part. Launch all dropships and assault transports. Begin ground operations. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Any Krathian unit that does not surrender immediately is to be neutralized. And Commander, yes sir? Make sure our troops know. The colonists down there have been fighting for 30 days. They're tired, they're hurt, and they're angry. We coordinate with them, not over them. Governor Okonkwo is still in command of her planet. Understood, sir. The first wave of Terran Marines launched toward Demeter. 50,000 of humanity's finest soldiers, all volunteers who had begged for the chance to be part of this operation. Everyone in the fleet had seen the recordings from Demeter. Everyone wanted to make the Krathians pay. Captain James Rodriguez led the first Marine company to land near New Harare. His company was made up of veterans, men and women who had trained for combat, but never expected to see real war. Humanity had been at peace for so long, but every human soldier trained for war anyway. Because humans remembered their history, they remembered that peace only lasted as long as people were willing to fight for it. The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Rodriguez checked his armor seals and weapon charge one more time. Through the small window, he could see the surface of Demeter approaching. What had once been beautiful farmland was now a scarred wasteland. Craters dotted the landscape. Cities were reduced to rubble. Forest had been burned. Rodriguez felt rage building in his chest. He forced it down. Rage was useful, but discipline won battles. The dropship landed hard. The rear ramp dropped and Rodriguez led his Marines out at a run. They were in the outskirts of New Harare, or what was left of it. Immediately, gunfire erupted from a nearby building. Rodriguez's armor registered multiple impacts. He turned and fired back, his rifle's computer-guided rounds finding their targets with precision. 3 Krathian soldiers dropped. The rest scattered, looking for cover. "Contact front," Rodriguez shouted. "Light them up!" His Marines spread out in textbook formation, finding cover and returning fire. The Krathians were still using the same tactics they had used against the colonists. Overwhelming force, direct assaults, assuming their enemy would break. The Terran Marines did not break. Rodriguez watched his tactical display as his soldiers maneuvered through the ruins. They moved fast, covered each other, and maintained constant communication. They had trained for urban combat on 100 different worlds. This was what they were built for. Within 5 minutes, the Krathian position was overrun. 12 enemy soldiers were dead. 5 were captured. Rodriguez's radio crackled. "Captain, this is Sergeant Chen. We've made contact with colonial survivors. They're in a fortified position 2 blocks west of your position. On our way." Rodriguez led his company through the destroyed streets. They encountered 2 more Krathian units. Both times the Krathians tried to stand and fight. Both times they were wiped out in minutes. The difference between Terran Marines and colonial militia was like the difference between a thunderstorm and a hurricane. The colonists had fought bravely with what they had. The Marines fought with the best equipment, training, and experience that humanity could provide. The colonial position was a half-collapsed apartment building surrounded by makeshift barricades. Rodriguez could see weapons pointing at him from every window. He activated his external speakers. Friendly forces approaching. "We're Terran Marines. We're here to help." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a ragged figure appeared at one of the windows. It was a woman, covered in dust and dried blood, holding a rifle that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. "Prove it," she called down. Rodriguez smiled inside his helmet. These people had been fighting for a month. They were not going to trust anyone easily. He removed his helmet, showing his face. "Captain James Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion, Terran Marine Corps. Fleet Admiral Chen sent us. Governor Okonkwo is still in command. We're here to finish what you started." The woman stared at him for a moment. Then she lowered her weapon. "Lisa Park, I was a teacher before all this. Now I'm—" She laughed bitterly. "I don't know what I am now." "You're a survivor," Rodriguez said firmly. "How many with you?" 43. We started with 200. Rodriguez felt his rage building again. He pushed it down. "Can you fight?" "We've been fighting for 30 days. We can fight for 30 more if we have to. You won't have to. We're here now. But if you can fight, we can use you. We know the tactics and have the weapons. You know the terrain and where the enemy is concentrated. Together we end this today. Lisa Park looked at her fellow survivors. They were tired, hurt, and half-starved. But when Rodriguez said they could end this today, he saw something spark in their eyes. Hope. And anger. Tell us what you need, she said. Over the next 6 hours, the Terran Marines systematically cleared Demeter of Crethian forces. They worked in coordination with colonial survivors, using local knowledge to find every enemy position. The Crethians tried to regroup and mount a defense. They sent their best units forward. They used their heaviest weapons. It did not matter. The Terran Marines were professionals fighting alongside people defending their homes. It was the most dangerous combination in the galaxy. Commander Thekmal watched from his command post as his forces collapsed. In 30 days of fighting colonists, he had lost 31,000 troops. In 6 hours of fighting the Terran military, he had lost another 40,000. He finally understood the truth. The colonists had not been weak. They had been civilians, fighting with civilian weapons, and they had still held for 30 days. The soldiers, the real soldiers, were something else entirely. His communication officer approached. Sir, all forward positions have been overrun. We have reports of mass surrenders on every continent. We've lost contact with the Southern Command completely. Thekmal looked at his tactical display. It was a sea of red indicators showing Crethian units being destroyed or surrendering. In one corner of the screen, he could see green indicators, human forces spreading across the planet like a flood. Sir, what are your orders? Thekmal was old enough to recognize when a battle was lost. Sound the general retreat. All units are to surrender to the nearest human force. Make sure they understand. We are beaten. Yes, sir. Thekmal disconnected his weapon harness and walked out of his command post. A group of Terran Marines spotted him immediately. Their weapons snapped up, trained on his chest. A human officer approached. He was not wearing a helmet. His face was hard, his eyes cold. Commander Thekmal? The officer asked. Yes, I am surrendering myself and all forces under my command. The human officer nodded slowly. Captain Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion Marines. You're going to come with me. There's someone who wants to meet you. They took him through the ruins of New Harare. Thekmal saw Crethian soldiers everywhere, sitting with their weapons beside them, guarded by humans. He saw human soldiers moving with purpose, securing positions, treating wounded, both human and Crethian. He saw colonial survivors watching him pass. Their faces showed hate, grief, exhaustion, but also something else, victory. They took him to a bunker entrance. Inside, he was brought to a command center. A human woman waited there, standing despite obvious exhaustion. She wore civilian clothes that were torn and stained. Her face was drawn, her eyes hard. Commander Thekmal, she said quietly. I'm Governor Sarah Okonkwo. Welcome to Demeter, or what's left of it. Another human entered the room. This one wore a military uniform decorated with symbols that indicated high rank. He was older, with gray hair and a face that had seen many things. I'm Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen, the man said. Commander Thekmal, you are responsible for the deaths of 780,000 human civilians. You ordered the bombardment of population centers. You refused offers of surrender. You treated this world as yours to take. Thekmal said nothing. What could he say? Everything the human stated was true. My fleet is currently in orbit around your world. My soldiers control this planet. I have the power to do to the Crethian Collective exactly what you tried to do here. Chen paused. Tell me, Commander, what do you think I should do? Thekmal met the Admiral's eyes. You should destroy us. That is what we would do. That is what we have always done. Chen nodded slowly. You're right. That is what you would do. But Commander, we're not you. He pulled up a star chart on a nearby display. It showed Crethian space with multiple systems marked in red. This is your empire. These are your worlds. And right now my fleet is plotting a course to visit every single one of them. Not to conquer. Not to enslave. But to make sure you never do this again to anyone. Chen turned back to Thekmal. You wanted to see what humans do when cornered? Congratulations. Now you're going to see what we do when we're angry. And Commander, we're very, very angry. Thekmal felt fear for the first time in his life. Not fear of death, fear of something worse. He had attacked humanity thinking they were prey. He had been wrong. They were not prey. They were not even predators. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were warriors who knew mercy but chose justice instead. And justice, Thekmal realized, was far more terrifying than simple revenge. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Ambassador Tirnal of the Velpari Confederacy stood at his podium, his forearms gesturing frantically. The humans are violating every convention of warfare. They have invaded Crethean space without council approval. This cannot be allowed. Ambassador Chen Kai sat calmly at the human observer station. Humanity had never joined the Galactic Council. They had been invited 3 times and declined 3 times. They preferred to stay independent. Now, looking at the panicking ambassadors around him, Chen Kai understood why his predecessors had made that choice. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker said. The speaker was a Valdari, a species so old that nobody remembered where they came from originally. The council demands an explanation. Your fleet has entered Crethean space. Your military is attacking Crethean colonies. The Cretheans are calling for council intervention. Chen Kai stood slowly. He was an old man, retired from Earth's diplomatic corps specifically to take this thankless position. He had been watching the council's response or lack of response to the Demeter attack for the past 30 days. Honorable Council, he said quietly. Humanity acknowledges your concern. However, we did not sign your warfare conventions. We are not bound by rules we never agreed to follow. That is irrelevant, Tirnal shouted. You cannot simply... The Crethean collective invaded a human colony world, Chen Kai continued, his voice cutting through the noise. They killed 780,000 civilians. They bombarded cities. They refused all offers of surrender. For 30 days, the Galactic Council watched and did nothing. The chamber fell silent. The council issued 3 statements of concern, Chen Kai said, reading from his tablet. 3 statements. While human civilians died by the thousands, the council wrote statements. While children were buried under rubble, the council debated proper procedure. While my people fought with farming equipment against a military invasion, the council decided to form a subcommittee to investigate. He looked around the chamber. Many ambassadors avoided his eyes. So yes, humanity is attacking the Crethean collective. We are doing what the council should have done 30 days ago. We are ensuring they cannot do this again, and we will not stop until that mission is complete. This is madness, another ambassador called out. The Cretheans are a powerful empire. You will start a galactic war. We did not start anything, Chen Kai replied coldly. The Cretheans started this when they attacked Demeter. We are simply finishing it. The council speaker raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Chen, the council cannot condone. The council's opinion is noted. Chen Kai interrupted. He knew it was rude, but he did not care. However, humanity will continue its current military operations. When we are satisfied that the Crethean threat has been neutralized, we will withdraw. Not before. He sat down, indicating the conversation was over. The council erupted in arguments. Chen Kai ignored them. He had already received his orders from Earth. Humanity was done asking permission. 300 light-years away, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen was thinking the same thing. His fleet had divided into 3 task forces. Each was hitting a different part of Crethean space. The strategy was simple. Move fast, hit hard, and show the galaxy what the Cretheans really were. Chen commanded the main task force personally, heading straight for the heart of Crethean territory. His first target was a colony world called Krethvar, one of the oldest Crethean settlements outside their home system. Intelligence reports said Krethvar was home to slave processing centers. Newly conquered species were brought here, sorted and distributed throughout the empire. It was, essentially, a massive concentration camp disguised as a colony. Chen's fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. As expected, there was a defensive fleet waiting, 80 Crethean warships. All ships, engage at will. Remember the rules of engagement. Avoid civilian casualties if possible, but prioritize our own forces. The battle was even shorter than the one over Demeter. The Crethean defenders fought bravely, but they were fighting against an enemy who had spent 30 days learning every weakness in Crethean tactics. Within 20 minutes, the orbital defense was gone. Chen opened a channel to the planet below. Crethean military forces on Krethvar. This is Fleet Admiral Chen of the Terran military. You have 1 hour to evacuate all non-military personnel from your military installations. After that, we will begin bombardment. Any civilian areas will not be targeted. Any military installation that attempts to use civilians as shields will be considered a war crime, and its commanders will be held personally accountable. He meant every word. Humans had learned from their own brutal history. They knew what happened when armies abandoned ethics. They would not become what they were fighting against. The Krethian military on the surface did not surrender. They prepared for battle. But they did evacuate civilians from their bases. Even they understood that the humans were serious about the war crimes threat. The bombardment was precise and limited. Chen's ships used kinetic strikes to destroy military installations, communication hubs, and spaceports. They avoided the civilian areas where the slaves were kept. Then the Marines landed. Colonel Sarah Okonkwo, the governor's younger sister who had joined the military 20 years ago, led the first assault team. Her target was the main slave processing center, a massive complex in the planet's northern region. The Krethian guards fought hard, but they were not prepared for Terran Marines equipped with full assault gear. The battle for the complex lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the guards were dead or captured. Sarah stood in the main courtyard of the complex looking at what the Krethians had built. Row after row of cages, each holding dozens of beings from species she did not recognize. The conditions were horrific. No sanitation, minimal food, no medical care. "Get medical teams down here immediately," she ordered, "and find me whoever was in charge of this place." They found him an hour later hiding in an underground bunker. His name was Krelthor, and he was the facility administrator. Sarah had him brought to the courtyard in front of all the cages. "Do you speak English?" she asked. Krelthor activated his translator. "Yes, I demand treatment according to the Galactic Convention on Prisoners." "You're not a prisoner of war," Sarah interrupted. "You're a slaver. You're going to be tried for crimes against sentient beings. But first you're going to help us free every single being in this facility. They are property of the collective." Sarah's rifle snapped up, aimed at his face. "They are people, and you're going to help free them, or I'm going to leave you in one of these cages while we broadcast to the galaxy what you did here. Let your victims decide your fate." Krelthor looked at the cages, at the beings watching him with hate in their eyes, beings he had tortured, starved, and abused for years. He suddenly realized that a human military tribunal might be the best outcome he could hope for. "I will cooperate," he said quietly. Over the next week, Sarah's team freed over 200,000 slaves from Krethvar. They were from 17 different species. Most had been prisoners for years. Some had been born in captivity. The Terran military set up temporary shelters, provided food and medical care, and began the long process of figuring out where everyone was from. Fleet Admiral Chen had brought civilian specialists for exactly this purpose: linguists, doctors, psychologists, logistics experts, and he made sure everything was recorded and broadcast to the galaxy. The Galactic Council could ignore statements. They could not ignore footage of Krethian slave camps. They could not ignore interviews with freed prisoners who told stories of generations of abuse. Chen made sure every news network in the galaxy had access to the footage. He wanted everyone to see what the Krethians really were. The second target was a mining colony called Theknar. The third was a military shipyard at Krelvas. The fourth was an agricultural world named Vorntal. At each world, the pattern was the same. The human fleet would arrive, destroy the military defenses, and land ground forces. They would free any slaves they found. They would disable the planet's military capability. And they would broadcast everything to the galaxy. Chen was not trying to conquer the Krethian Empire. He was trying to dismantle it. After the liberation of Vorntal, something unexpected happened. The planet's population, mostly Harani, a species that had been enslaved for 200 years, asked if they could help. "Help with what?" Chen asked the Harani delegation. "Help free our people on other worlds," the lead Harani replied. His name was Vorn, which was apparently a common name among his people. "We know where other Harani are held. We know the facility layouts. We can fight." Chen considered this carefully. "If you join us, you'll be fighting against the Krethians. You'll be risking your lives. You just gained your freedom. Are you sure you want to risk it?" Vorn's translator conveyed something that might have been a laugh. "Admiral Chen, we have been slaves for 200 years. We have dreamed of revenge for 200 years. You have given us a chance to actually achieve it. Yes, we are sure." Chen made a decision that would change the campaign. All right. We'll train you, equip you, and you'll fight alongside human forces. But you'll follow human rules of engagement. No massacres, no war crimes, no revenge killing of civilians. Can you agree to that? Vorn looked at his fellow Harani. They spoke quietly among themselves. Finally, he turned back to Chen. We agree. Show us how to fight like humans. Within 2 weeks, the first Harani volunteer battalions were ready. They were trained by Terran Marines and equipped with human weapons. When the fleet moved to the next target, the Harani came with them. Word spread quickly. Other freed species began volunteering. The Velpari, the Sortak, the Grendi, every species the Krethians had enslaved wanted their turn to fight back. Chen's fleet was becoming something else. It was not just a human military force anymore. It was becoming a liberation army. By the second month of the campaign, the Krethian Empire was in chaos. 6 major colonies had been liberated. Dozens of smaller installations had been destroyed. Over 1 million slaves had been freed, and the Krethian military was learning a terrible truth. They had built an empire on fear and overwhelming force. When facing an enemy that did not fear them and could match their force, they had no idea what to do. The Krethian High Command held an emergency meeting. The Supreme Commander, an ancient warrior named Rekthor, looked at the strategic maps with growing horror. How many ships have we lost? He asked his staff. Total losses are at 473 vessels, Supreme Commander. We have an additional 200 ships too damaged to fight. And the humans. They have lost 18 ships. Rekthor's mandibles clicked in distress. The numbers made no sense. The Krethians had superior numbers, comparable technology, and thousands of years of conquest experience. But the humans were winning every single engagement. What about the liberated colonies? Rekthor asked. They are establishing their own governments. The humans are providing security but not taking control. They appear to be leaving the worlds to govern themselves. This confused Rekthor even more. They are not conquering? Not claiming the territory? No, Supreme Commander. They free the slaves, destroy our military installations, and move on to the next target. They are not building an empire. They are destroying ours. Rekthor finally understood the human strategy. They were not trying to replace the Krethian Empire with their own. They were trying to ensure the Krethians could never threaten anyone again. What is their current course? The tactical officer pulled up a star chart. A line showed the human fleet's projected path. It led directly to Kreth Prime, the Krethian homeworld. Supreme Commander, at their current rate of advance, they will reach our home system in 30 days. Rekthor looked at the map for a long time. 50,000 years of Krethian history, 50,000 years of conquest and dominance, and now a species they had dismissed as primitive was going to bring it all to an end. Recall all fleets, he ordered. Every ship, every soldier. Bring them home. We make our stand at Kreth Prime. Sir, that will leave dozens of colonies undefended. Those colonies are already lost, Rekthor said. We cannot fight the humans everywhere. We can only hope to stop them at our home. Recall, everyone. This is our last chance. The order went out across the Empire. Every Krethian military asset began moving toward the homeworld. They were gathering the largest fleet in Krethian history, over 2,000 warships. It would be the greatest battle the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. Fleet Admiral Chen received intelligence reports about the Krethian fleet buildup. His staff was worried. Sir, they're gathering everything they have. We'll be outnumbered 5-1, maybe more. Chen studied the reports calmly. Good. Let them bring everything. Better to face them all at once than chase them across the galaxy for years. But Admiral, the odds, Chen interrupted, said that Demeter would fall in 3 days. The colonists held for 30. The odds said we would lose dozens of ships taking Krethvar. We lost 2. The odds have been wrong about humanity since this whole thing started. He looked at his staff. We're going to Kreth Prime. We're going to face their entire fleet. And we're going to win. Because we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting to make sure no other species ever has to suffer what the Krethians have done. That's worth any odds. The fleet set course for Kreth Prime. Behind them, a trail of liberated worlds began the slow process of rebuilding. Ahead of them, the entire Krethian military waited. The final battle was coming. The Kreth Prime system had never seen this many ships gathered in one place. Supreme Commander Rekthor stood in the command center of the Eternal Dominion, the largest warship in the Krethian fleet. Around his flagship, 2,147 warships held position in a defensive formation that had taken days to perfect. Every ship in the Cretan Empire that could still fight was here. Every soldier that could hold a weapon, every weapon that could still fire. This was everything the Crethians had built over 50,000 years of conquest. Status of the defensive platforms? Frekthor asked. All 300 orbital defense platforms are active and armed, Supreme Commander. The minefield around the outer system is deployed. Long-range sensors are at maximum sensitivity. And the planetary shields? Active over all major cities and military installations. If the humans try bombardment, we can hold for weeks. Frekthor nodded. He had prepared the best defense possible. Now he waited for the humans to arrive. He did not have to wait long. Supreme Commander, we have FTL signatures at the system's edge. Multiple contacts. It's them. How many ships? The sensor officer recalculated several times as if not believing the numbers. I count 412 human vessels and, Supreme Commander, there are additional contacts. Different signatures. I'm detecting Harani ships, Velpari ships, Sortak vessels. The humans have brought an allied fleet. Total numbers? Approximately 600 ships total, sir. Frekthor felt a surge of confidence. 600 versus 2,000. The humans were outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Even with their superior tactics, that was an advantage they could not overcome. All ships prepare for battle. Hold formation. Let them come to us. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Fleet Admiral Chen watched the tactical display. The Crethian fleet was massive, organized in a layered defensive formation around the planet. It was a smart setup. Any attacking force would have to punch through multiple defensive lines while under fire from the orbital platforms. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're demanding we stand down. Ignore them, Chen replied. Tactical assessment, Commander Torres? Commander Torres studied her screens. They have a strong defensive position. The minefield will slow our approach. The orbital platforms give them an artillery advantage. And their numbers, she shook her head. Sir, this is going to be costly. I know, Chen said quietly. He had known this moment would come. He had prepared for it. But we're not backing down now. Not after coming this far. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, I won't lie to you. The Crethians have gathered their entire military. We're outnumbered badly. Some of us won't make it home today. He paused, thinking about Demeter, about the colonists who had held for 30 days, about the millions of slaves who had suffered for generations. But we're not here for easy battles. We're here to end a threat that has terrorized the galaxy for 50,000 years. We're here to make sure no other world suffers what Demeter suffered. We're here to prove that bullies can be beaten. That might does not make right, and that humans stand up for what's right no matter the cost. He took a breath. I'm proud to serve with all of you. Now let's go finish this. All ships advance. Operation Hammer begins now. The Terran fleet surged forward, but they were not advancing in a standard formation. Chen had learned from every battle in human history. He knew that sometimes, unconventional tactics were the ones that won. The human fleet split into 7 separate groups, each moving on a different vector. They were not attacking the Crethian formation directly. They were surrounding it. Supreme Commander, the humans are dispersing. They're trying to encircle us. Frekthor watched the tactical display with growing confusion. That makes no sense. They're spreading their forces thin. Each group can be defeated individually. Should we advance to engage them? Frekthor considered. If he moved to attack one group, the others could attack his rear. But if he stayed in formation, he could not bring his full firepower to bear. Hold position. Let them come to us. Our defensive formation is strong. Make them pay for every meter they advance. The first human battle group reached the minefield. The Crethians expected them to slow down, to carefully clear a path. Instead, the humans accelerated. They sent forward a wave of small, fast ships, corvettes and frigates that moved with insane speed. The mines detected them and detonated. Dozens of small human ships were destroyed in brilliant explosions, but they had cleared a path. The larger ships behind them poured through the gap. They're sacrificing their own ships, one Crethian officer exclaimed. No, Frekthor said slowly. They're spending assets to achieve an objective. They knew some ships would be lost clearing the mines. They accepted the cost. It was brutal mathematics. It was also devastatingly effective. The first human battle group engaged the outer defensive line. Kinetic rounds and missile salvos hammered into the Crethian ships. The Cretheans returned fire, their plasma weapons cutting through space. Ships on both sides began to die. But while the Cretheans were focused on the first group, the other 6 human battle groups were completing their encirclement. Chen had baited the Cretheans into committing to one fight while he moved the rest of his forces into position. All battle groups, weapons free, engage at will. The Crethean formation suddenly found itself under attack from 7 different directions. Their defensive advantage disappeared. Their numerical superiority meant less when they could not concentrate their fire. The battle descended into chaos. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer TES Relentless. Her ship was part of Battle Group 3, attacking the Crethean formation from above the orbital plane. Her target was one of the orbital defense platforms. All weapons focus fire on that platform. I want it gone. The Relentless and 3 other destroyers hammered the platform with everything they had. The platform's shields held for the first minute, but sustained fire eventually wore them down. The platform exploded in a massive fireball. Next target, another platform 2,000 kilometers to our port side. Captain, we have Crethean cruisers moving to intercept. Evasive maneuvers. All ships stay together and keep firing. We need to take down these platforms. The Relentless twisted through space, dodging plasma fire from the Crethean cruisers. One shot clipped her port side and the ship shuddered. Damage report. Port armor compromised. Shield generators at 60%. We're still combat capable. Santos gritted her teeth. Keep firing. We're not backing down. All across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships took damage but kept fighting. They protected each other, covered retreats, and coordinated their fire with precision. The Cretheans fought hard, but they were fighting the way they always had, with overwhelming force and direct assaults. It had worked for 50,000 years. It was not working today. Commander Vorn led the Harani volunteer ships in Battle Group 5. His people had trained for 8 weeks with human instructors. They had smaller ships and less advanced weapons than the humans, but they had something more important. They had a reason to fight. All Harani ships follow me. We're going after that carrier. The Crethean carrier was a massive vessel, carrying hundreds of fighter craft. It was a priority target. Vorn's squadron of 20 small ships accelerated toward it. Crethean fighters launched to intercept. The battle turned into a swirling dogfight. Vorn's people had learned human tactics. Stay mobile, cover your wingmates, never stop moving. 3 Harani ships were destroyed, but they took down 12 Crethean fighters and put enough missiles into the carrier to cripple it. This is for 200 years of slavery. Vorn shouted as he fired his last missile into the carrier's engines. The carrier began to drift, dead in space. Across the battle, the pattern repeated. The freed species fought with a fury the Cretheans had never seen before. The humans fought with a level of tactical coordination the Cretheans could not match, and together they were unstoppable. 4 hours into the battle, the Crethean formation began to collapse. Too many ships had been destroyed. Too many platforms were gone. The defensive lines that Rekthor had carefully prepared were shattered. Supreme Commander, we've lost over 800 ships. The humans have broken through our outer defense. They're advancing on the planet. Rekthor looked at the tactical display. It was a nightmare of red indicators showing destroyed or damaged Crethean vessels. The humans had lost ships too. The display showed almost 100 human vessels destroyed, but they were still advancing. How? Rekthor asked. How are they doing this? We have superior numbers. His tactical officer looked up from her console. Sir, I've been analyzing their tactics. They're not fighting like any other species. Every other species we've conquered fought to destroy our ships. The humans are fighting to achieve objectives. What do you mean? They're targeting our command ships, our carriers, our support vessels. They're not trying to kill as many of us as possible. They're trying to break our ability to fight as a coordinated force. Every move they make has a purpose. They're fighting like we're a puzzle to solve, not an enemy to simply overwhelm. Rekthor suddenly understood. The Cretheans had built their military around the idea of overwhelming force. They had never needed strategy because they always had more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The humans had built their military around the idea that they might be outnumbered. They had learned to win battles through superior tactics, coordination, and adaptability. And that made all the difference. Supreme Commander, the Eternal Dominion is being targeted. Multiple human ships are moving to engage us directly. Rekthor looked at the incoming ships. At their head was a massive dreadnought, the Indomitable. The humans were bringing their flagship to kill his. All remaining ships protect the Eternal Dominion. We cannot let... An explosion rocked the command center. Alarms blared. The lights flickered. We're hit! Kinetic round penetrated our shields. Multiple hull breaches. Shield generators are failing. Another impact. And another. The human ships were focusing all their fire on the flagship. Damage control teams, get those shields back up. We're trying, sir, but the third impact hit the command center directly. Vrekthor saw a flash of light, felt the impact, and then nothing. The Eternal Dominion, the pride of the Crethean fleet, broke apart. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. With the Supreme Commander dead and the flagship destroyed, the Crethean fleet lost its coordination. Individual ship captains began making their own decisions. Some tried to rally, some tried to retreat, some simply surrendered. The battle was over. Admiral Chen watched as the last pockets of Crethean resistance surrendered. The battle had lasted 14 hours. It was the longest, bloodiest battle in human history. Final casualties scrolled across his screen. 89 human ships destroyed, 3,200 human personnel killed, 15,000 wounded. The Allied forces, the Hurani, Velpari, and others, had lost 42 ships and over 2,000 fighters. The Cretheans had lost 1,847 ships. Over 2 million Crethean military personnel were dead or missing. Chen felt the weight of those numbers. Every number was a life. Every ship had a crew. Every casualty had a family. But it had been necessary. He told himself that as he looked at the casualty reports. The Cretheans had killed billions over 50,000 years. They had to be stopped. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's from the Crethean matriarch. She's requesting to speak with you. Chen nodded. Put her through. The screen showed an elderly Crethean female. She looked tired, her mandibles drooping with age or grief. Admiral Chen, she said quietly. I am Matriarch Krensol, leader of the Crethean High Council. I am authorized to offer our unconditional surrender. I'm listening, Chen replied. Our fleet is destroyed. Our military is beaten. We cannot fight anymore. We ask only that you show mercy to our civilians. They did not choose this war. Chen studied her face. He saw fear there, but also resignation. She knew what humans could do to her world if they chose. Matriarch, humanity did not come here to commit genocide. We came to end a threat. Your military enslaved billions. It had to be stopped. But we're not interested in destroying your species. Then, what do you want? I want to land on your planet, Chen said. I want to meet with your High Council in person. And then I'm going to tell you exactly what happens next. 3 hours later, Chen landed on Kreth Prime with a security detail of Marines. He was brought to the High Council chamber, a massive room built to intimidate visitors with its size and grandeur. Chen walked in wearing his combat uniform, still stained from the battle. He did not come to be impressed. He came to deliver terms. The High Council sat in a semicircle, 13 elderly Cretheans who had ruled an empire. They looked at Chen with a mixture of fear and fascination. Members of the High Council, Chen began. The Crethean Empire is over. Your fleet is destroyed. Your military is scattered. Your 50,000 years of conquest end today. The only question is what happens next. What are your terms? Matriarch Krensol asked. Chen pulled out a datapad. You will immediately release every slave in your empire. Every single one. You will provide them with ships and supplies to return home or settle wherever they choose. You will pay reparations to every species you have enslaved. You will reduce your military to defensive forces only, supervised by human observers. You will open your space to Galactic Council inspectors, and you will never, ever attempt another conquest. And if we refuse? One of the council members asked. Chen's expression did not change. Then I turn this entire planet into a monument to what happens when you threaten humanity. Your choice. The council members looked at each other. They had no real choice and they knew it. We accept, Krensol said. All of it. We accept, Chen nodded. Good. You have 90 days to begin implementation. Human observers will arrive within the week. And Matriarch? If you ever break these terms, we'll be back. And next time we won't be so generous. 6 months after the Battle of Kreth Prime, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council for the first time as humanity's official representative. The chamber was packed. Every major species in the galaxy had sent delegates. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would say. Elena was younger than most ambassadors, only 45 years old. She had been a military lawyer before this, prosecuting war crimes cases. That experience, she thought, made her perfectly suited for this moment. The council speaker, the ancient Valdari, gestured for her to approach the central podium. Ambassador Vasquez, the council has invited humanity to apply for membership. We have also received petitions from the freed species, the Hurani, Velpari, Sortak, and others, requesting that humanity be granted a permanent council seat with special protections authority. Before we vote, the council would hear from humanity directly. Elena walked to the podium. She could feel every eye in the chamber on her. She carried a small case with her, which she set on the podium before speaking. Honorable council members, she began. 6 months ago, humanity was a minor spacefaring species that nobody paid much attention to. We had been in space for less than 200 years. We had never participated in galactic politics. We were, by galactic standards, insignificant. She paused, letting that sink in. Then the Crethian collective attacked our colony at Demeter. They killed 780,000 civilians. For 30 days, this council watched and did nothing. You issued statements. You formed committees. You debated proper procedure, but you did not act. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Humanity learned something important during those 30 days. We learned that the galaxy has rules, but those rules only matter when someone is willing to enforce them. We learned that the strong can do whatever they want to the weak, unless someone stops them. Elena opened her case and pulled out a small object. It was a piece of rubble from New Harare on Demeter, preserved in clear polymer. This is from my home city. I grew up on Demeter. My parents died in the first bombardment. My sister died fighting in the ruins of our elementary school. I survived because I was off-world at the time, working for the Terran Justice Department. She set the rubble on the podium where everyone could see it. When I heard what happened, I wanted revenge. I wanted to see the Crethians destroyed. I wanted them to suffer the way my people suffered. But that's not what humanity did. Instead, we did something the galaxy has apparently forgotten how to do. We fought a war with purpose. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the campaign. Humanity attacked 6 Crethian colonies. We freed over 1 million slaves. We destroyed military installations, and when we were done, we left. We didn't occupy. We didn't conquer. We didn't enslave. We liberated and withdrew. At the Battle of Kreth Prime, we defeated the largest fleet ever assembled by any single species. We had the power to destroy the Crethian homeworld. We could have killed billions in revenge, but instead we offered terms. We demanded justice, not genocide. She looked around the chamber. The council asks if humanity wants membership. The freed species petition for us to have a special role. Before I answer, I need to tell you what humanity is. Elena took a breath. This was the part she had rehearsed 100 times. Humans are predators. We evolved as hunters on a dangerous world. For most of our history, we fought each other. We have a capacity for violence that most species in this galaxy cannot comprehend. We have committed atrocities against our own kind that would horrify you. The chamber was absolutely silent. But we learned. Over thousands of years, through terrible mistakes and hard lessons, we learned to control that capacity for violence. We learned to channel it. We created laws, ethics, codes of conduct. We learned that might does not make right. We learned that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, not exploit them. Elena pointed at the piece of rubble. Demeter taught us that the galaxy has forgotten these lessons. The Crethians enslaved species for 50,000 years, and the galaxy let them. They attacked a peaceful colony, and the galaxy issued statements. You have rules, but no one willing to enforce them. So here's humanity's answer. Yes, we'll join the council, but not as just another member. We want the role the freed species are petitioning for. We want to be the wardens of the galaxy. When species like the Crethians attack the weak, humanity will respond. When slavers operate in the shadows, humanity will hunt them. When the council issues statements but takes no action, humanity will act. And before you reject this because it sounds like we're demanding to be the galaxy's police force, understand this. We don't want this role. We didn't ask for it. But someone has to do it, and apparently no one else will. So it falls to us. Ambassador Tiernal of the Velpari stood. Ambassador Vasquez, with respect, what you're describing is vigilante justice. The council exists to prevent exactly this kind of unilateral action. Really? Elena replied. Then where was the council when the Crethians attacked Demeter? Where was the council during the 50,000 years they enslaved billions? Your rules didn't stop them. Your procedures didn't save anyone. We must follow proper diplomatic channel. While people die, Elena interrupted. While civilians are murdered? Tell me, Ambassador, how many people had to die at Demeter before proper diplomatic channels would have resulted in action? 1 million? 10 million? All of them? Tyrnal had no answer. The council speaker raised his hand. Ambassador Vasquez, the council understands your frustration, but we cannot simply allow one species to appoint themselves as the galaxy's military force. That could lead to tyranny. You're right, Elena agreed, which is why humanity isn't asking for unlimited authority. We're proposing a framework. Humanity will respond to clear acts of aggression or exploitation. But we'll answer to this council. We'll report our actions. We'll provide evidence. And if the council believes we've overstepped, you can vote to sanction us. You would actually accept council oversight? Another ambassador asked skeptically. Yes, because we're not interested in building an empire. We're interested in making sure what happened to Demeter never happens again. To anyone. Elena pulled up another display showing the freed Crethian colonies. In the 6 months since the war ended, humanity has helped establish democratic governments on 7 former Crethian slave worlds. We've provided medical aid, infrastructure support, and defense training. We haven't claimed a single world. We haven't extracted tribute. We helped them rebuild, and then we left military advisors to help them defend themselves. This is what humanity means by being wardens. We protect, we defend, we train others to defend themselves, and then we leave. The council chamber erupted in debate. Ambassadors argued back and forth. Some supported humanity's proposal. Others feared it. Everyone had an opinion. Finally, the council speaker called for order. The council will vote. The question is, should humanity be granted membership with special warden authority as described? The vote requires a 2/3 majority. The vote took an hour. Ambassadors consulted with their home governments. Deals were made. Compromises were reached. Finally, the results appeared on the main display. 127 in favor, 58 against, 15 abstaining. The motion passes, the council speaker announced. Humanity is granted council membership and warden authority, subject to oversight and review. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Vasquez. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of what had just happened. Humanity now had a formal role in galactic politics. It was a role they had earned through blood and sacrifice, but it was also a responsibility, a burden they would carry for generations. After the council session, Elena returned to her quarters. A message was waiting for her from Fleet Admiral Chen. She opened it. Ambassador Vasquez, congratulations on the council vote. I wanted you to know. The memorial on Demeter is complete. The dedication ceremony is next week. Governor Okonkwo asked if you would give the keynote address. I think you should. The people there need to hear from someone who understands what they went through. Let me know. Chen. Elena looked at her schedule. She could make it to Demeter and back before her next council session. She sent a quick reply, I'll be there. 1 week later, Elena stood on a hill overlooking what had once been New Harare. The city was being rebuilt, but the scars were still visible. Construction crews worked 12-hour shifts to raise new buildings. But they had left one area untouched, the memorial. It was a simple design. A large wall made from the rubble of destroyed buildings, polished smooth. On the wall were carved the names of every person who had died defending Demeter. 780,000 names. In front of the wall stood a statue. It showed a colonial militia member, rifle in hand, looking up at the sky with defiance. The inscription at the base read, "They came expecting prey. They found humans." 50,000 people attended the dedication ceremony. Survivors, families of the dead, military personnel, government officials, everyone who had been touched by the Battle of Demeter. Governor Sarah Okonkwo introduced Elena. The governor looked older than she had 6 months ago. She walked with a cane now, her leg having been badly injured in the final days of the siege. But her voice was strong. "We lost so many," Sarah said. "We lost friends, family, neighbors. We lost innocence. But we never lost hope. We never lost the belief that if we could hold long enough, help would come. And it did. Today we honor those who held the line. Ambassador Vasquez will speak." Elena approached the podium. She looked out at the crowd. She saw military uniforms and civilian clothes. She saw humans and also members of the freed species, Hurani, Velpari, others, who had come to honor the place where humanity had shown the galaxy who they were. "My name is Elena Vasquez," she began. "I was born here in New Harare. This was my home. These were my people." She gestured at the memorial wall. Some of those names belonged to people I knew. My parents, Marcus and Sophia Vasquez. My sister, Carmen. My childhood teacher, Mr. Okonkwo, the governor's father. Friends, neighbors, the woman who ran the corner store where I bought candy as a child. When I heard about the attack, I was on Earth. I wanted to come home. I wanted to fight. But I was told I was needed elsewhere, helping coordinate the legal framework for the military response. So I did my duty, even though every day I wished I could be here. Elena paused, gathering her thoughts. I've spent 6 months helping prosecute Krethian war criminals. I've interviewed survivors from a dozen species. I've seen evidence of atrocities that will haunt me forever. And through it all, I kept asking myself, how did this happen? How did the galaxy let the Krethians enslave billions for 50,000 years? I found my answer. The galaxy had forgotten how to fight for what's right. They had become comfortable, complacent. They had rules and procedures, but they had forgotten that sometimes rules need to be enforced by force. The people of Demeter remembered. When the Krethians attacked, you didn't wait for the council to debate. You didn't form committees. You fought. For 30 days you held against impossible odds. You reminded the galaxy what it means to stand up to bullies. Elena felt tears running down her face. You paid a terrible price for that lesson. 780,000 lives. An entire generation of our colony. Children who will never grow up. Parents who will never see their children again. A city reduced to rubble, but you won. Not just the battle, you won something more important. You proved that humans will not be victims. You proved that peaceful people can fight when they must. You proved that we will never surrender our freedom, our dignity, or our humanity, no matter the cost. She looked at the statue of the militia member. That statue represents all of you. Every person who picked up a weapon. Every person who refused to run. Every person who said not one more step to the enemy. You are the reason humanity now has a seat on the Galactic Council. You are the reason freed slaves across the galaxy have hope. You are the reason the galaxy will never again dismiss humanity as insignificant. Elena turned back to the crowd. The Krethians came here expecting to find easy prey. They found humans instead. They found farmers who became soldiers. They found teachers who became warriors. They found ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Today we dedicate this memorial, but it's not just a reminder of who we lost. It's a reminder of who we are. We are humans. We are the species that chose peace but never forgot how to fight. We are the people who will stand up for the weak, who will challenge the strong, who will never let another Demeter happen to anyone. The galaxy will remember the Battle of Demeter. They will remember what happened when someone made the mistake of attacking humanity. And they will remember that we fought not for conquest, not for revenge, but for something simpler and more powerful. The right to be free. Elena stepped back from the podium. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then slowly people began to stand. One by one they rose until everyone was on their feet. They were not applauding. They were standing in honor of the dead, in recognition of the sacrifice, in acknowledgement of what had been lost and what had been gained. After the ceremony, Elena walked through the memorial. She found her parents' names on the wall. She touched them gently, feeling the cool stone under her fingers. "I hope I made you proud," she whispered. A voice behind her said, "They would be." Elena turned. Governor Okonkwo stood there, leaning on her cane. "You did good work at the council," Sarah continued. "Getting them to accept the warden role, that wasn't easy." "It was necessary," Elena replied. "The galaxy needs someone willing to act. Demeter proved that. Do you think humanity is ready for that responsibility?" Elena thought about it. "I don't know, but we're the only ones willing to try. That has to count for something." Sarah nodded slowly. "The Admiral told me something before he left. He said that before Demeter, he thought humanity had evolved past war. He thought we'd left our violent history behind. But after Demeter, he realized the truth. We didn't evolve past violence. We learned to control it. We learned to use it for the right reasons. Is that what we did? Elena asked. Used violence for the right reasons? You freed 1,000,000 slaves. You stopped an empire that had enslaved billions. You showed the galaxy that evil has consequences. I'd say yes. Those were the right reasons. Elena looked back at the wall of names. I hope so. Because if we're going to be the galaxy's wardens, we need to be very sure we're doing it right. Power like that, it can corrupt. It can turn us into what we fought against. That's why the council oversight is important, Sarah said, and why people like you need to be involved. You remember the cost. You'll make sure we never forget why we fight. They stood together in silence for a while, looking at the memorial. Around them, Demeter was rebuilding. New buildings rising from the rubble, new farms being planted, new families arriving to replace those lost, life continuing, despite everything. Finally, Sarah spoke again. What happens now, Elena? The war is over. The Crethians are beaten. What does humanity do next? Elena smiled slightly. We keep our promise. We watch for the next threat. We protect those who can't protect themselves. We make sure no one else has to build a memorial like this one. That's a big job. Yes, but we're humans. Big jobs are kind of our thing. Sarah laughed, the first genuine laugh Elena had heard from her in months. True. We held Demeter for 30 days with farming equipment and hope. I suppose watching over the galaxy isn't that much harder. They walked back down the hill together, leaving the memorial behind. The sun was setting over New Harare, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It was beautiful, despite everything. In orbit above Demeter, the Terran Defense Fleet maintained their watch. They would stay here for years, making sure the planet was never threatened again. Across the galaxy, in freed colonies and rebuilt worlds, humanity's message was spreading. We will not conquer you. We will not enslave you. But if someone tries to harm you, we will come, we will fight, and we will win. It was not the role humanity had wanted. They had been content to farm their worlds, explore space, and live in peace. But the galaxy had reminded them that sometimes peaceful people need to be ready for war, and when war comes, it's better to be the warriors than the victims. The Crethians had learned that lesson. They would never forget it, and neither would anyone else. 10 years later, at a council meeting, Ambassador Tyrnal would ask Elena, "Do you ever regret taking on the warden role? The burden it places on humanity?" Elena would think about Demeter, about the memorial wall, about her parents and sister, about all the people who died so that others could be free. Every day, she would answer honestly, but I'd regret not doing it more. Someone has to stand up for what's right. Someone has to be willing to fight for the weak. If not us, then who? Tyrnal would nod slowly. The galaxy is lucky it was humanity who took that role, and not a species that would abuse it. Give us time, Elena would joke darkly. We're still learning. But deep down she knew the truth. Humanity had learned its lessons the hard way, through thousands of years of mistakes and horrors. They knew what happened when power was abused. They knew the cost of tyranny and conquest. That knowledge, that understanding of both violence and mercy, was what made humanity the right choice for wardens. They were the species that had learned to be strong without being cruel, to be powerful without being oppressive, to be willing to fight without being eager to do so. They were humans, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.